grab your popcorn, grab your decapitated head, get your butter, get your bag of blood. This is the 2022 edition of the 31 Days of Dread, where Peter A. DeLuca, aka Pad, your boy here, the film buff, does one horror movie a day, and that's me talking. I'm your host. I'm not a vampire. I'm almost a zombie because I've just been doing nothing but watching these movies so I can discuss them all with you. But here it is, the 31 Days of Dread. Everyone, I am so excited to bring you these movies. We're doing modern day horror for the first time ever. We're barely even going to hit 2021. We're going to focus on 2022. So roll over in that coffin and let's go. AKA Patters, we have a fun, we have a special, we have a very cool movie. We have a horror movie with an absolute gimmick. And if you haven't read any of the titles or seen the thumbnail, we're talking fall 2022. Can we get into the plot real quick? The plot is, well, it opens the same way as Stallone's cliffhanger, which is fine. Look, if we're going to set up a movie, we might as well borrow from Stallone. But essentially, a young girl, she's free climbing or just free scaling a mountain, basically with as little rope as possible. Her boyfriend falls to the death. She has post-traumatic stress syndrome. Her girlfriend is a social media influencer. And she coerces this girl to climb on this tower for some posts, some views, and some clicks. Super topical, because we've recently, like, it kind of happens a few times a year now. We have social media deaths, people dying while trying to get that perfect picture. Look, I'm guilty of that. I'm basically mapping out this whole European trip later this year. I'm already Googling and looking up best Instagram spots for France and Italy and so on and so forth. But we get something that I feel like a lot of the film reviewers, film conversationalists missed on this movie. This movie is a trope. This movie is a gimmick. And this is what they're missing. This movie is well made. It's well executed. It's thought out. What you see on screen, you're not exactly sure if they're there. There are so many moments where you're convinced that they're legit on this tower, that they're trapped, that they're hundreds and hundreds of feet up in the air. And this is through the technical understanding of our director. Our director deserves Scott Mann, M-A-N-N. He deserves a big shout out because what he was able to do, he convinced us that these girls were trapped and that there's no way home. And there's essentially this idea of, I'm trying to get some of my wording here, but we have to believe 1,000% that these two characters are where they are. Otherwise, there's no tenseness. There's no storytelling in them getting saved. There's no desire because we don't believe their situation. We don't believe where they are. This entire movie is bent on that hook. A lot like Open Water. Like Open Water had to have been shot a certain way where you're in the ocean with that couple. And when the sharks show up, there's a feeling of dread and loneliness. Fall executes all of that, and Fall also, it falls in the genre that's a little bit emerging. It's a little bit confusing, but it's survival horror. But there's a natural survival horror, meaning these two characters or other characters. A great example would be 2010 Frozen with Sean Astin from the Iceman from the X-Men. I guess that's a big pun there. But Frozen is a ski movie where they're stuck on the ski lift, and then the park shuts down, a storm hits, wolves show up, and it's madness from there on. And even in that movie, you have to believe that these characters are where they are on the environmental sense. Scott Mann deserves all the accolades and all the credit, and just a lot of attention for technical for the technology around this movie, because we know that they're not on that tower as this movie was shot. But it's so freaking convincing. It sells the movie. It makes the movie fun. And it defines, again, like going into the 31 Days of Dread for 2022. This defines what horror is, because we're getting something new. We're getting something thrilling through horror. And we're not getting it in these other film genres. And The Last Bastion, the Shining Castle on top of the hill, is 1,000% horror. And look, we need a little bit of... I just want to get... I always forget the name of this movie. Sorry, I just had to click on something there. I'm talking Scenic Route. In the UK, this movie is known as Wrecked. The film was released in 2013. It stars Josh Duhamel and Dame Fogler. Josh Duhamel, he just dropped a Netflix movie with J-Lo. It's like the Wedding, Guns of Wedding or Wedding Crashers. It's something like that. He's in an Amazon wedding movie with J-Lo right now. But us, like super dorks, we know him through the Transformers film franchise, the Michael Bay directed movies. So why are we talking about Scenic Route? Well, Scenic Route has an ending that this movie borrowed from. Scenic Route ends, and again, this is environmental survival horror. Scenic Route is probably the best one of these three movies. I do recommend Scenic Route, I do recommend Frozen 2010, and I do recommend Fall. I think these three movies is a wonderful survival trilogy. Everyone should watch it. But Scenic Route is essentially two men stranded in the desert. They're on a road trip, they get stuck, and they have to make their way back. The movie ends with this dream hallucination, a fantasy sequence that we're not sure if it's real or not. Depending on the audience, depending on where the viewer is, if you're in a good place, they survive. And if you're in a bad place, they don't. This movie uses that hook, but it defines that hook. It's not ambiguous. It's insanely intelligent when they gave you that swerve, when they gave you that curveball in Fall, and you do feel sorry for the girl that they revealed to be dead. And along the way, these movies, like Frozen 2010, the giant wolf sequence, there's a natural creature, there's a there's a zoology element, and in Fall they fight off crazy vultures, which is perfect. And the other part of all these movies, look, Frozen and Fall are both guilty of this. There's payoffs. In the first act, a lot of these situations are set up and they pay off later, just like in Frozen and just like in Scenic Route, but they're way more clear in Frozen and Fall. But sorry, do I keep saying Fallen? I'm saying Fall. Please correct me. But no, everyone, Fall is a amazing survival horror movie. It's amazing natural survival horror movie. Again, this is a growing genre. There's already there's a movie called Descent where a bunch of girls get stuck in a cave, but that's more of a creature survival horror. This movie's legit. This movie's fun. This movie's captivating. This movie sticks with you as horror should, and it's hopeful. Like that's always the best part of survival horror is the hopefulness of when we get a survivor, when we get someone that faces their fears and fights through the muck and the mud and busts through that wall. And usually it's something that, again, like we go for tropes, and this girl has a fear of the heights. She has a fear of just doing anything, and she needs to overcome that fear through fear. It's amazing. It's a great genre. I always look forward to these movies. I love the gimmicks. I love the ballyhooiness. And again, big shout out to Scott Mann for nailing the technical part of this movie, because the movie would not be convincing and it would not be able to sell if he didn't do as good of a job. And yeah, not just him, the entire, like, everyone involved. But big ups, big bravo. AKAPAD here, the film buff, signing out. The future of film is horror, and thanks for all of that, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with me. Getting back to my point there, the future is horror. The future of cinema is horror. So everyone here, and I've never ever in all these years, I've never made this request, but everyone that we highlight, every single filmmaker, male, female, ghoul, goblin, you know the drill. But check them out. Find them on a streaming platform. I usually highlight how I watch these movies on which platform, even if I rented it or bought it, so you guys know a little bit of the price range. It's important that we support all of these movies and all of these filmmakers because they are the future. The future is horror. Thanks for hanging out.